Good morning, Mike Ferry Superstar Agents. This is Mitch Shaboyan, Mike Ferry coach and salesperson. Today we're going to talk about closing skills. Mike always tells us closing is a natural ending to a great presentation. So the closing doesn't have to be dramatic, doesn't have to be a magic pill. If you practice, you own your presentation, you complete the pre-qualification process, closing comes naturally and easy. So you just got to learn some simple words. This is a super great closing technique. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, please sign the contract so I can help you get what you want in the time you want. And smile. Keep it simple. Okay, where do I sign? So just remember, it doesn't have to be a big dramatic process. If you do a great job pre-qualifying, you do a great job presenting, just ask them to sign the contract. Okay? Now, the key to that though, don't talk a lot. When you ask them a question, be quiet, listen to what they say, maybe make a note, smile, and answer the question. Especially when you ask them to sign the contract. Don't say, will you sign the contract? Now, is the commission okay? Just simply say, will you sign the contract, please? Put the pen in front of them, the paper, and just be quiet and smile and wait for them to sign. You'll be surprised. They'll sign. Because people want to be led. That's the key. When you come in with confidence, you're knowledgeable, you know your market statistics, you're dressed professional, you're prepared, you need to lead them to get the contract signed. And leading them is asking questions. So if you follow the questions, and at the very end, please sign the contract and give them the pen and let them sign. And they may surprise you, and they probably will. Okay? So just remember, they're letting you in the house for a reason. Most people want you to, you're there for a reason. So otherwise they're not going to let you in the house. You did a good job setting an appointment. You did a great job pre-qualifying them. Now you're face to face. They expect you to give them the information. They expect you to close them and ask them to sign the contract. We are salespeople, and that's what they expect. So you need to ask the question, please sign the contract. When you walk in, though, it's very, very important on that presentation to lead to a close is you walk in with a great attitude, you have a lot of enthusiasm, your confidence, you believe in what you're saying, and you assume they're going to list with you. Now, let me clarify. Don't take it for granted, but assume they're going to list with you. Okay? Now, there's a fine line there. Again, we're not saying don't take for granted. For instance, if it's a past client, a center of influence, and they call you and say, Mitch, I want you to come out and talk to us about selling our home, don't take it for granted they're not interviewing other people. So we must pre-qualify them and ask them all the questions. Okay, that's what I mean by not taking it for granted, but what I mean by assuming you're going in strong, confident, a lot of enthusiasm. That's why you're there. I'm here to get your house sold. That's why you let me in. And they'll feel that and sense that. And they want somebody that's confident. They want someone to lead them because they're trying to make a decision on the biggest investment of their life. Should I turn this property over to you? And do you have the ability, the knowledge, the confidence to get it sold? So be strong when you come in. And again, assume they're going to sign the contract. Okay? And don't be afraid to be direct with them. And direct is simply saying, will you please sign the contract? Well, we want to think it over. Can I ask why? Those are very direct questions. That's Mike Ferry 101. Very direct, very honest. And when you're very direct and very honest, you'll probably get an honest and direct answer back. Then you know exactly where you are, where you stand. Okay? Remember this. I'm estimating 80 to 90% of the presentation is before you get there. Okay, what do we mean by that? Well, that means if you do a really good job on pre-qualifying, going through all the steps, set an appointment, qualifying, delivering the pre-sale package, calling back and confirming, ask all the necessary questions as possible. You do all that. When you get there, usually the presentation is easier. Getting the contract is easier if you do everything right. Keep that in mind. Most of the appointment is before you get there, and getting a contract signed or a closing is all up front. The pre-qual, the presentation. Okay? So remember, you're going to get a no. We want to think it over. We're not sure. That's normal. Okay? So one no is nothing. It takes 5 no's to get a yes. So you need to write that down. You need to close on them at least 5 times if you don't get it on the first time. Now, again, I'm going to go back to the simplicity of this. At the very end, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, will you please sign the contract so I can help you to get to San Diego in the time you want? Won't that be great? Smile, shut up, put the pen in front of them. Okay? Now, they say, well, we're going to think it over. Okay? Now, try to handle that objection. That's why you got to know your objection handlers. Repeat what they're saying, clarify, make sure you know the objection, and try to handle it and close again. You may have to do this 4 or 5, 6 times. Okay? The other part of closing is keep moving forward. So if they tell you no, don't stop. Don't get frozen. Okay, so let's say you have a disagreement about the price. You're telling them one price, they're not sold on your price. Don't, try to handle it, but don't keep going back and forth. In other words, don't keep fighting with them. You got to move forward. And what I mean by moving forward, level shift a little bit. Move forward. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, are you going to leave the refrigerator and the washer and dryer? Are they going to stay with the house? And they're probably going to say yes. And then you write that down. Write it right in the contract. A lot of times when I'm there and I'm not getting the contract, they're not giving me the yes up front, I go right to the disclosure statement. So in other words, you're moving forward. Make them stop you. If they're not going to stop you, you have a chance. Keep moving forward. Level shift. Ask them, now, is there any leaks in the house? Have you had a termite report? And write it down. They see you writing it down. Then come back again to the price and close again. So a lot of times, if they're not stopping you, that's a good sign. Keep moving forward. Now, the other thing you can do is we need to learn the plan of action, the back end of the presentation. So again, if you're stuck, they're saying, no, we want to think it over, they're not ready, you're not going to pack up and leave. You stay there. You keep closing. So go to the plan of action. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I want to show you what my plan of action is to get your property sold. Let me share it with you and go over it with it. And then as you say 2 or 3 items that you're going to do, action steps, close. Isn't that what you're looking for? Great. All we need to do now is simply sign the contract so I can help you get what you want in the time you want. So the point is, keep moving forward. Remember this. Make it easy for them to sign the contract. That's what closing is all about. Don't make it a big, dramatic, magical thing. It's not. Like Mike says, again, a great presentation is a natural ending. Okay, it's simple. If you follow the presentation, make it simple. Okay, and I'm going to keep emphasizing, move forward till they stop you. Now, this regarding objections, when you get an objection, try to handle it, but sometimes they're just throwing that out. You don't always have to handle it. Remember, an objection is not really an objection until it stops you from signing the contract. So maybe they ask you what the commission is, and they never bring it up again, and you simply say, sign the contract, please. They may not, don't stop and say, well, before you sign the contract, I got to answer that question you asked me 5 minutes ago. Make it easy for them to sign the contract, okay? Because really, you think about it, they don't want you there for an hour. They got a life. They got a family. They want you to sign the contract and get going and get the house sold. So again, they invited you in for a reason. They invited you in to interview you. And what they're doing, they're evaluating if you're knowledgeable? Do you know what you're doing? And then they expect you to lead them so they can get the contract signed. So remember, close more than one time if needed, but remember, probably 80–90% of the presentation, the closing is before you get there. How do you prepare? And then the closing will come naturally. Go out and have a great week and make a lot of closings and get a lot of sales and a lot of contracts signed. Thank you.